Okay, I've got actually 7:01, we're a minute late, so I think we'll get started. My name is Ben Proctor, I'm the Superintendent of Schools, and we have a group here, but we also have a group online, right, Phil?
Yep.
We have some folks on. So we'll be speaking to them, and if you're online, if you're live streaming, Phil's got it set up where you can put comments if you have questions or want to bring something up as we go, and you guys who are here at any point, we'll keep it super informal. So just stop me and ask questions or share any thoughts that you may have. So this evening, if you were here or if you tuned in or watched the recording from Thursday, it's kind of the same information. So, and I'll talk about what we're doing this evening and then how we'll evolve the presentation as we go through the next several weeks. So our goal through February is to inform. We want to provide information based on what's occurred over the last 12 months or so, and just the process we've used to get where we are. So first thing I want to show you is our website where we house information on the facilities planning process. So if you go to hestonschools.org, you'll see a tab that says Facilities Planning. And when you click on that, you'll have updates, just ongoing updates. For example, we put out an update for the meeting tonight with the link to the live stream, the presentation slideshow, and just some basic information, just letting people know what's going on. And then over on the left side, we've housed a lot of different resources. So if you want to watch the recordings from these videos, you have a link there. You can see the presentation information. We've got building design layouts where some of the drawings and concepts that have been put together are available for you to see. Meeting notes, so our architect SPT has been coming onto campus and working with us since the start of the school year. And so all the meeting notes and everything are there. We made a presentation to our city council and rec back in December. Information from that is there. We'll talk about our facility steering committee in just a minute. That group's been really instrumental in getting us to where we are now. And you can see committee members, that membership has changed over time. There's new members that have come on board in the last several weeks. We have some folks that were on early on that just weren't able to attend every session. But you can see the main group there. There's information on our capital outlay budget, and that's a really important tool as we do planning not only for the bond, but also facilities planning over the next several years. That's how we fund all current equipment and capital purchases that we make in the district on a year-to-year basis. A resource that I want to point out real quick is our mill levy worksheet. Maybe. Oh. So this is a good resource for all the financial aspects of our bond project and what our proposal is. At the top of the document, you'll see our assessed valuation, our total valuation for the district. You'll see all the different mill levies we have as a school district, which includes our bonded interest, which currently is at 12.19 mils. Below that, you'll see what we call the mill levy impact, which is the difference between the current 12 mills that we assess and whatever would be an increase over that, and how much of a project, a total value of a project, we could create based on that increase. So you'll see at a flat mill levy for a 25-year term, the total project amount would be about $16 million. If it were a 30-year term that we would pay off over that period of time, it would be about $17.8 million. If we were to do a project that added 12 mills, just to give you the high-end amount, over 25 years, that'd be about $32 million, and over a 30-year term, it'd be about 35. Below that, you'll see the mill levy impact. So whatever an increase would be, 1 mill all the way to 12 mills, you can see on a $200,000 residential property what that impact would be both per month and per year. And we've got estimates from 1, 3, 6, and so on. We can provide estimates on every level there. Below that, you'll see our county communities that all have 4 different entities that assess levies: our county, city, school district, and rec. And you can see how we compare based on those 4 entities. So the county is all the same for those communities. We've got Burton, Halstead, Newton, Sedgwick, and Hesston. City is, you're going to see variability from the city levy. You'll see variability from the school district and the rec, and then what our total levies are. This was for the 2020-21 school year, or fiscal year. So you can kind of see where we're at compared to the other communities. I will mention that Sedgwick, there's in parentheses there a plus 15. They passed a bond, a school bond this spring, or maybe it was last fall, I think, I'm sorry, that added 15 mils. So you can add 15 mils to the total there for Sedgwick. You'll also see over the last 20 years, what has our mill levy done? The FY, starting in FY 22, that's for fiscal year, and that's the 21-22 school year. You can backtrack all the way from 21-22 back to 2001-2002, where we were at 19 mils. We've been able to lower that levy over time. We saw a pretty significant drop in the 14-15 to 15-16, 16-17 school year, where we were able to refinance during that term and drop the levy down, and that's where we've been pretty steady here the last several years. And then one more part of this worksheet, you'll see the South Central Kansas school districts and how we compare in total mills and in our bond and interest. So starting with Caldwell at the highest, this is for the 2021 school year. Andover would be second. We are 24th, and you can see again just comparisons in school districts, both large and small, in our area. There's other resources there as well. Phil, we doing okay on sound? Are you getting any concerns? Okay. Just in the auditorium, it's bad. Other links on the left side there, below our mill levy worksheet, we'll talk a little bit about our architect and how we acquired SPT, and Greg Tice is our architect, what that looked like. Way back in the spring of last year, we did a community survey to kind of set the stage for the work that we would ultimately do with the facilities project that's turned into a bond project. You can see survey results, a community presentation that was done last April, and we'll kind of talk about the work that we did, the process we've used to this point. But a lot of resources there. We will continue to add those as we go, including these recordings and just any information that would be helpful for you, we'll get on that site. Okay, real quick, this is the second informational session of what is currently 5 scheduled. We can do as many as we need to do, but we had, on last Thursday, we had an informational session. Again, this one is very similar, where we're talking about the basic elements of the bond project. We'll go through those this evening. We have another basic overview on the 24th at 10 a.m. at the Hesston Area Senior Center. And then we've got a couple of additional sessions that are scheduled, one for the 17th, one for the 24th, and those will be addressing more specific topics. And we'll talk about what those specific topics are. But there's questions, because we're proposing something pretty substantial, there's some questions and concerns that people have, and we want to be able to address those specific questions and concerns and put good people up in front of you, better people than me, to explain a lot of those things. So 17th and 24th will be a little bit different. They'll be similar to one another, but a little bit different than what we're presenting on this past Thursday and tonight. So several opportunities, and then always feel free to reach out to me. So if you have questions or thoughts that come up, or maybe it's something that you don't want to ask in the big group, always feel like you can reach out to me. We can sit down and visit about the things that are on your mind as far as this project goes. Very quickly, I just want to walk through the process that we've used to get to this point. And I've mentioned on Thursday, and I've mentioned a lot of times, we started the conversation in early March of 2020. So we started talking about our payoff in September of 2022 and learned that any conversation you were having about anything in March of 2020, the timing was poor. Because shortly after we sent out some initial communication, we shut down school for a period of time and really couldn't get people together. So we got off to a little bit of a slow start, but over the course of the winter of 2020 into 2021, that's when things really kicked off as far as our long-term facilities planning. What we did initially was we put together some focus groups. So we had a focus group for each school building. We had an elementary group led by Mrs. Crable, middle school group led by Mr. Heinrichs, and a high school group led by Mr. Rhodes. And then we also had what we called kind of an athletic and grounds focus group as well. So we had a lot of parents, students, community members, staff that got together, spent time in the buildings walking through and deciding what needs we had in each building from those perspectives. At the same time we did that, we also had some groups come in and do assessments of all of our infrastructure. So we looked at our roofs, our HVAC, electrical, plumbing, emergency notification systems, really tried to do a good analysis of how things currently stand in all three buildings, because we know we have some needs there. We've got aging systems, so things that we want to do a very thorough assessment of those things. As we progressed through that spring, we had a community meeting much like this, where folks came in and we were able to present our findings of that needs assessment. So we did a presentation. I mentioned that we did a survey. You can see the results again on our website from that survey. And what that survey told our Board of Education was that we were ready as a community to have a more extensive conversation about facility needs in the district and kind of look forward to a potential bond project as we work through the summer and through the fall of 2021. So one of the first things we did as we kind of got into the summer months is determine that we needed an architect to help us. So bringing a good partner into the conversation about the work that we would like to see done in our buildings. We went through a very extensive process to find the right partner. We interviewed 5 different firms. I think we received qualifications and proposals from 8 firms. Really tried to spend time with a committee that the board had established, determining who would be the best partner to help us with design work and community engagement through the fall. And we ended up choosing SPT out of Wichita, and Greg Tice is our lead architect in that. As we went through the fall, additionally, we selected a bond counsel, which is Stiefel out of Wichita. We've been using them for our O2 bond as well. They've been great to work with and continue to be great to work with. And we've chosen Hutton as our construction manager at risk. And that's another topic that we want to spend some time on, because that's a little different construction approach than what we've used in the past too. So that'll be another topic that we spend time on the 24th, or the 17th and the 24th. Another really important part of our process, the planning process that we used, was the establishment of what we call our Facility Steering Committee. And again, there's a link on our website with a lot of names of folks who've been a part of that committee. And we began our work in August and September and continue that work as of now. So we actually have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday. We've been meeting often. Our meeting last week got disrupted due to weather, but have another meeting on Wednesday. And this group, as we started the process way back in August and September, looked at a lot of different options, a lot of different possibilities. We took the needs assessment information that was put together from the spring and started working with our architect to come up with concepts. What are possibilities for our schools? And we looked at 4 or 5, one of the very first nights that we got together. Those options included, everything from what would a whole new high school look like, what would a whole new middle school look like. We like our elementary a lot, so we didn't look at a new elementary. But started looking at what's feasible. We really discovered early on That didn't seem like a feasible option. So we started talking about the possibilities of, grade level configurations. That was something that we did additionally in the spring of last year, where we brought staff in and had conversations about whether or not we should even put on the table the idea of moving grade levels from the K4, 5, 8, 9, 12 system that we've had for many years. What our staff told us in doing that work was they felt like that was a viable thing to look at. It was something that we should talk about as part of this process. So the committee, the facility steering committee, felt like that was a good option to at least put on the table, where we could disrupt that K4, 5, 8, 9, 12, even though that was an option we wanted to look at too, improving all three buildings. But ultimately, where we started and where we ended was the idea of taking our current structure, our current grade level configuration, and moving our 5th through 8th grade into what is the existing high school and create basically 2 schools under 1 roof. And part of the reason the committee felt like that was a good option was looking at the needs at the middle school. A lot of it is infrastructure needs. Felt like it would be more cost-effective over time to look at that option of moving 5 through 8 into the high school building, where we could do extensive work here. Really the starting point for all of that, one of the primary findings from our needs assessment, especially at the high school level, is the academic area of our high school. How many of you guys have been back in the academic area? Some of you have. If you go back there, you'll see that, and probably can recognize that maybe the original design from the late 60s, early 70s of that hexagon pod system is not what we currently have. So back at that time, and it's very common in our area, whether it's circular pods or octagon pods or hexagon pods, the design at that time was to have an open concept, and where you have classrooms that are next to classrooms, but you don't have walls dividing all those things. And over time, where that open concept was started, walls were erected, and so now you have a combination of classrooms of all kinds of shapes and sizes with very limited space in many classrooms and very limited natural light. So you have what our committee often referred to as a dysfunctional academic area at the high school. And so from a staff perspective, from a committee perspective, we felt like it was important to address that. So as a starting point to address the academic area, we felt like it made even more sense to completely start over. As we looked at remodel options, so that was another option that we considered as part of the architect's work with that committee. What we found was if we did any type of remodel to try to straighten out some of the classrooms that have lots of different walls and lots of different corners, the layout just not being very conducive for learning, what we would lose is a lot of square footage in those classrooms. So we'd have to expand the size of classrooms, lose square footage, and have to add on to the building, to the existing structure anyway. And so as we started looking at what is most cost effective, if we were going to do something substantial in that academic area, we really would need to start over. And we heard that not only from the architect that we ultimately selected, we also heard that from other architects that we interviewed and worked with just to kind of do some assessments of our academic area there at the high school. So in addition to looking at all those options, the Facility Steering Committee has been making recommendations to our Board of Education. In December of this past year, the recommendation from the Facility Steering Committee to the board was that we need to move forward with the bond project. And so in December, the board voted to pass a resolution that we would put a bond election on the ballot for the voters in USD 460 this spring. So that's been the work of the group so far, and we'll talk about what their next steps are here in just a minute. So want to walk through the elements of what we currently have in our bond proposal, and want to definitely take time to answer questions that you may have. What I've found since our meeting on Thursday, there has been conversation, in the community, which is what we want. But there's also just some misunderstandings of some of these concepts, and so we want to be able to do a good job of explaining things that maybe don't make a lot of sense. So one of those examples would be that part of our proposal is to create 2 new 2-story academic wings here at the high school. That would be all new construction. So we would basically take the existing academic area and level it. So there is no academic wing. And we would build 2 hallways, one running, the way we have it structured right now, one running to the west and one running to the north. And we'll look at that in just a second. The 2 stories would allow us to have a middle school wing and a high school wing. So you would have a separation of 5-8 and 9-12. We would not be building a second story on any existing structure, so it would be all new where that academic area would be constructed. Between those 2 areas would be a media center or a library area that would serve both 5-8 and 9-12, but would create a separation point for those 2 wings to allow us to continue to operate a middle school and a high school. Obviously, that would mean transitioning our 5th through 8th graders to this building, which would be a substantial change from how we've done school for a very long time here at Hesston. And that's part of the reason we want to spend a lot of time talking through the month of February, the proposal that we have on the table, so that we can answer questions that folks have, especially about that element. Additionally, we would construct a new auditorium, and we'll take a look at what that concept looks like here in just a second as well. Where we have that positioned is on the south side of our auxiliary gym, and on the back side of that, or the east side of the auditorium, would be 2 new music rooms. Anybody know where our choir room here at the high school is right now? Maybe you do. We could tour it, and you would, if you don't have never seen it, you would think it's a pretty sad place. I don't think we use it for that at this point, but we feel like we've got some limitations even in this space here. And the idea of creating something new, not only for our students and the people who are involved in programs that do their performances in an auditorium, but we feel like it'd be a great community space as well. So if we do that, we've got an existing auditorium, we've got existing band rooms and choir rooms, and we're in that pod right now, the Fine Arts pod. What we would propose is that we would do a complete remodel of this area. And it would, what the idea that we have right now would be that the space that we're in, the majority of it or a large portion of it would become athletics oriented, including a weight room that would be on site. So our current weight room is over at the stadium. We would like to house the weight room in the building so that we don't have to move kids over there on a daily basis. We also have, it's a very nice weight room that we have, but it's got limited square footage. And for our summer programming, it's really not conducive for the number of kids that we have in summer weights. And we feel like having space, and our proposal right now would more than double the space that we would have for that weight room, not only to do weights, but to do other activities that are a part of not only the program in the summer, but also during the school year. So our football coach, Coach Bowerly, I think he's very excited about that possibility. But this area would all be remodeled for that purpose. We also have potentially additional locker room spaces in this remodeled area as well, but probably would take on an athletic field and would be adjacent to our gymnasiums, and we feel like that'd be a good location for those things. Additionally, we would renovate our shop and pit stop pod. Many of you have probably been in the pit stop, and you know you've got kind of limited access through one door, and on game nights we've got a lot of congestion. We would like to expand that space into some of our existing classroom areas and create more accessibility, and we'd also like to expand our shop and our other hands-on opportunities and programs that we can provide to kids. So that pod would also be renovated. We would do some renovation to our main entry, and we would want to create not only a high school office area, but also a middle school office area as well. And we would want to have a separate entry point for our middle school kids from the high school kids, separate drop-off location for parents who are dropping their kids off for school. So that's kind of the big idea, or at least the different components that we have as part of our proposal that the Facility Steering Committee put together. I'm going to come back to the timeline and let you kind of take a look. This can be a little bit hard to get oriented. And if you're online there, you can hopefully find the slide that shows the overview or the building layout. But right here is the entry into the high school. And we're in this fine arts pod now. So you'll notice that you can see a little bit of the existing academic pods, the hexagon pods up here, but you'll notice from the office area, the counselor's office area, all that is where the new construction would be. So this is the two wings that we talked about running. This one runs north and to the northwest, and one runs to the west. And then over here is the second story. So this would go on top of the first story of the academic area. And this space in the middle would be where the media center would be, in that separation point between the two hallways where we would have 5-8 and 9-12. We would also have, again, the fine arts pod would be renovated, but one thing that we would want to do is to create a corridor or access so that you don't have to walk all the way around the back side in front of the main gym to get to the auxiliary gym and what would be the auditorium on the south end. So you would have access through this space one way or the other in order to have a more direct route to the fine arts and auxiliary gym as well. Additionally, I don't think I mentioned this, but a late addition to the Facility Steering Committee proposal was to add an additional gym. This would be another auxiliary gym and would likely serve primarily as a middle school gym. And it would go in the old swimming pool area. We would also create an access hallway to the gym. And one of the things that I've grown accustomed to is for our home basketball games, a question that's asked almost every game. I don't think it was asked on Friday, but that's very rare. For our visiting crowd, if they have to walk across the baseline to get to the visitor section, I like to stand on the wall right as you come in, because there's no way to get there unless you walk across the baseline. People don't like doing that. We'd like to create some access so that you can actually get to the visitor side without having to walk across that baseline. But that would be the location. We feel like the old pool area is kind of waiting for something in that space, and we feel like a gymnasium would make a lot of sense. So that's kind of the overall design. Again, we would renovate the shop and pit stop pod as well, but the overall design would give us a new academic wing, 2 stories. One of the halls would be the middle school academic area, one would be the high school academic area, auditorium on the south side with a hallway that would run in front of the aux gym, new access points from the front of the building to the fine arts area and aux gym. Those are the main ideas behind the proposal. What questions do you have or thoughts do you have? And Phil, if there's anything online, just let me know anytime.
Maybe you want to talk about office space for high school and middle school?
Sure. So we currently have an office area for the high school, but what we would want to do, because we really want this to have a 5-8 and 9-12 feel. So we want to maintain the elements that we love about 5th through 8th grade, and we believe we can do that, and also have operating a 9-12 system as well. So we want to have an office space that would allow us to continue to operate the 5-8 office. That would likely be, so there's different ways we could situate that. We would very likely extend the entryway of the building, the main entrance out, and have a new office area for either middle school or high school. We would want to have, again, a separate entry point. And one thing I didn't mention was over here on what we would probably look at as the middle school wing, we've created an extended hallway that would serve as a common space at the end of that hall, that middle school hall. It would replicate a little bit of what we have at the elementary school, where we've got a commons area and then classrooms off of that. We love that. It's a great design. We really appreciate having that at the elementary. We'd want to create something similar, maybe not quite as large, but similar for that middle school wing as well. So office areas, entryways, all of that, there would be a separation of the middle school from the high school. So that's part of the reason we want to be able to add office space for middle school, entryway for middle school that would be separately. Other questions or thoughts on all that? Okay, so timeline. A really important date to keep in mind is April 26th. That's when the bond election is scheduled for. In mid-February, which we're quickly approaching mid-February, we're anticipating our Facility Steering Committee making a final recommendation to our Board of Education. So when we meet on Wednesday with that committee, we're going to look at final numbers. We're going to look at all those projects that you just saw. That's kind of where we've left it. That's what's in our bond resolution that was passed in December. And we want that committee to make a formal recommendation to the board to consider. We probably won't do that at the regular meeting on the 14th. It'll probably happen at a special meeting that we'll schedule for either later that week or the following week, but we'll have that committee come to the board meeting and make a recommendation for the board to consider. At that point, the board can say, we're ready to move forward, and then we would submit that bond language to the county, and we want to do that by early March so they can get ballots printed, all those types of things. The board has a lot of flexibility. They can decide that they want to do something different than what's recommended by the committee. They could decide we're going to pull the whole thing off. Everything is on the table, but the work that we've done so far, the process that we've worked through, has put us in a good position for the committee and the board to work together to do something probably very similar to what we've looked at this evening with all those different elements, or something very similar to that. So that's our current schedule as we go through the month of February and provide these types of opportunities, these informational sessions. And we want to not only ask people to come in and hear the things that we're talking about, we want to get out in the community as well. So if there's places that we can go to talk about this and share these ideas, we definitely want to do that. When we get into March and April, the communication is probably going to feel a little bit different in the community. We see that more as what we would call a campaign. And you're going to hear more about reasons why people on the committee, different folks in the community who might support this project are going to share reasons why they feel like you should vote yes for the project. Right now, is a lot of information. As we get into March and April, you'll see a little bit different message that'll be shared by people who are proponents of this. But that's how we see the next few months. April 26th, again, is the date of the election. We have a recommendation likely coming from our steering committee to our board in mid-February, and then we want to get all that information to the county in early March. Right now, just to give you an idea of where all those things would fall in terms of total cost. So again, that design that we looked at, that concept for this building, would cost about $33 million, $33.5 million to do all those things. Get you a little bit of an idea of the scope. It's a large project. This is a picture of the Marion Auditorium in Marion, Kansas. It was actually designed by SPT, and I think they finished it 14 years ago, and my understanding is they absolutely love it. We've talked a little bit to their staff and have some folks that have been up there to look at it. And we feel like that's the type of design. We'll have our fine arts teachers contribute to that. And anybody who wants to share thoughts on what we might want to do with that auditorium. But again, the way we're looking at it right now, we'd situate that auditorium on the south side of the Aux Gym and feel like that would be a better setup than what we currently have here in this auditorium. I mentioned on February 17th and February 24th. So tonight's been a lot of basic information, just kind of an overview. Here's the process we've used to this point. Here's the overall scope of the project. That should be finalized here within the next couple of weeks and to the county for an ultimate vote in April, on April 26th. On February 17th and February 24th, we want to focus on a couple of things that we feel like are concerns about this project, or at least concerns for some folks. The idea of moving 5th through 8th graders to a different location is that's a substantial change. It's different than what we've had in Hesston for a really long time. And even on our committee, from the very first night that we started talking about that, there were people who didn't necessarily love the idea of 5th graders and 6th graders mixing in a school with 10th, 11th, 12th graders, older kids and younger kids, just concerns about the age differences. And we kind of worked through those conversations with our committee. We've talked about that with our staff, and we feel like that's something that we want to address. Not only from, I can share with you my thoughts on that, but we really want to get our staff up here to share with you how that can look and why we don't feel like that should be a concern for anybody. And we feel like, if anything, we will only benefit from that type of structure. And the example, I think the best example we have is how we operate in our middle school currently. And many of you are probably very familiar with that, but we start every single day in our middle school with 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders mixed. Right, Mr. Heiners, we do that still. So every day for 25 or 30 minutes, those age groups are mixed. And that's an interesting mix of age groups if you know much about 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We're very intentional about the way those times work. And really, for the rest of the day, you have very little interaction, if any at all, between 5th and 6th graders and 7th and 8th graders. And that's due to how we schedule, how we structure the day, how we create points of separation, and then when we want to bring kids together, we can do that too. And we have a really good track record of operating, I think, in our district in that intentional way of either separating or bringing different groups together. So I feel like we're going to be able to do that very successfully, but instead of hearing that from me, we want you to hear from our staff. I think we're even going to have some students come and share their perspective on how that can look and why we really don't believe that should be a concern for people as you think about the different age groups. We think through scheduling, through actual just the construction or design of the buildings, there's going to be natural separation, but we want to address that issue because we know it's on many people's minds. So again, we're going to spend a lot of time on that on the 17th and 24th, and we want to encourage everybody to be a part of that. If that's something that you want to learn more about, you want to ask questions about it, again, we'll have staff, our principals, folks that can speak to that in a really good way. Another topic that we want to spend time on those 2 evenings is the middle school building itself. So that's another concern. It's something that we've talked about often in our committee. If we vacate the middle school, if we bring 5th through 8th graders over here, what will the future of the middle school be? So we want to spend time talking through what those options are. One important point to consider as we think about that is if all of this played out and we were able to pass the bond and move forward with this new concept, new design, all this new construction, we would be in that building with students for 2 more school years. So we have through the 23-24 school year before anybody would move out. And that's the time period that it'll take to construct the new academic areas and ultimately move kids over. Another part of that is the way we've got this design, we would be able to sequence that and stage that where we would never have to disrupt having school here at the high school. So we would be able to maintain all kids in this building without having to bring in additional structures to house kids. We'd be able to sequence everything so that school continues on as normal in different spaces and still allow the middle school to operate there through the 23-24 school year, and then we would start with all the new elements in the 24-25 school year. So it just gives you kind of a timeline of what we're talking about. So the big thing for the middle school that we'll spend time on the 17th and 24th are the needs. So again, as we did infrastructure needs assessments, what we discovered was there are significant needs there. And so as we looked at what would be the most efficient way to move forward, knowing we have a couple of buildings that are aging, that's ultimately a big part of the reason why we felt like this new configuration and investing in this building and new facilities where we can provide more for our younger kids, it seemed to make a lot of sense to the committee. So we're going to spend a lot of time on those two topics and answer all questions that people have on those topics. I'll be available, but we'll have staff available and steering committee members that will help respond to those things and share information with you on those 2 evenings. So, I feel like we went a lot faster. What questions do you have? What thoughts or concerns or things that you feel like we need to be considering as we work through the month of February, kind of knowing what our timeline is? What are things that are on your mind as far as this project goes?
Ben, what's our current bond rate? And what in the new mill proposal, what bond rate? are they using?
Interest rate?
Yeah.
John, I'm not sure what our current interest rate is. The new would be under 3%.
Okay.
You know, that fluctuates, but it would be low, really low. And that's why part of the reason that we're considering whether to do a 25 or 30-year term, because we feel like there's not a whole lot of difference, but we can get more bang for the buck if we do 30 years. So again, our bond counsel, Steve Shogren, has been involved in our process throughout. I'm emailing with him every few days, just kind of talking through those questions so that he can keep us updated on those things. So we feel pretty comfortable about moving forward on that. So there's no indicators right now that will change substantially by the time we would vote and ultimately move forward with the bond. So we're paying attention to that too. Other questions? And I can find out what our current rate is.
No, I was
just need to
curious.
check.
I was curious if there was a substantial change. Have you put together any numbers? I know it's very early, but have you put together any numbers on what the savings would be with synergies as far as one cafeteria, one kitchen, probably reduced cafeteria workload, one band room, one choir room, one library? What the cost would be with the synergies of that?
Yeah, so the question is just the efficiencies that we would potentially gain through consolidation from an infrastructure standpoint. And we're working on those numbers, those estimates. We know that there will be some. And we know that from an infrastructure standpoint, just having less roof space, having things in strategic locations and not spread out as much, we feel like we're going to gain a lot of efficiencies there. So we're working on all those numbers. That's a part of the architect's work that he'll give us as we analyze just square footage and those types of things. So we feel like we're going to gain in efficiency, and we feel like we're going to be able to, from a student programming end, be able to expand a lot of what we're able to offer our younger kids. So those were two driving factors that, again, kind of move the committee in this direction. That we feel like we can become more efficient, and we feel like we can expand opportunities for students. So. What else? Other questions or thoughts? Or words of wisdom, if you have any of that too. We take those too. Okay, well, we are going to keep moving forward the month of February with information again. Important dates, 17th and the 24th. Those will be similar presentations, just like the 3rd and 7th have been similar, although I'm about 30 minutes quicker tonight than I was the other night. I'm trying to think of what I've left out. But if you have any questions or thoughts or anything at all, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I've really enjoyed over the last several weeks being able to sit down with people who do have concerns. And sometimes we've been able to determine that maybe the information that was on their mind wasn't entirely accurate. We just kind of talk through those things. So we want to be very, very available, and that's to anybody at all times. So please encourage people to reach out to me if they've got any questions. Do we have a question back there?
Yeah, about the auditorium, if there was a seat number that we had in mind yet, or?
So the concept that we have on the table would be about 700 seats. So it would be an increase. We feel like that'd be a high-end number. We'd have to decide if we want to do something that large, but we do feel like there'll be a lot of community usage. I have some meetings scheduled with some folks in the community to talk more about the auditorium, but that would be a big increase. We want to be able to have enough seating for all the students that we would have in the building. 700 would be a high number for that, but we do want to expand seating, and it would be a different arrangement than what we have here.
And the idea would be to house band and music concerts there, like
Yes.
elementary program too.
Yes, yes. So we would have to, Mrs. Funk, I don't know that I've broken the news to her, but she's one of the people I want to have come and share some information or perspective, because I think she's excited about the new auditorium, right, Mrs. Crable?
Correct.
And you are too?
Yes.
Yes, okay. But we would have to structure, because we have more than 700 people that come to the elementary music
Correct.
program.
Correct.
So we'd have to,
structure that differently.
make some adjustments there, but that's where it would be. And as amazing as that production is, it's a challenge in the gym. Anything we do in the gym that requires audio and audience and all those types of things, it's not built for that. It's built to play sports, volleyball and basketball and those types of things. So we feel like we would have a wonderful space that would house a lot of the events that we end up doing in the gym, just because we need larger numbers of seats. So yes, all those things would be there.
Okay. Storm shelters with the new music rooms, is
Yeah.
that going to be the only ones on site?
So we would construct on the east side of the auditorium would actually be the band and choir rooms that would double as storm shelters. And we've talked a lot about the distance that would be from the academic area. And I mentioned the other night, we're going to do a trial run at some point this spring and move kids over that direction, just to see kind of what the time frame would be to get kids moved from one side of the building to another, because that's been expressed as a concern. We're still talking about that, but we feel like we could house those in that area as part of our new construction, and that's currently in the proposal that we have. Make some adjustments there, but that's what we're thinking right now, is the band and choir room would serve as our storm shelter. Right now, it's we don't have the greatest storm shelter facilities. We use locker rooms, the old pool, locker room area and hallway. We feel like this would be an upgrade for us for sure.
Are there going to be upgrades to the current main gym?
So we don't want to mess with our main gym too much. And this is just personal preference. We really like it. We feel like it's got a lot of good elements of character and those types of things. One thing that we do want to do is move air handlers out of the gym. So if you've been in some of our productions, you might notice those things kick on periodically, and right, Les?
Yes.
And just having water over the gym is something that we feel like isn't the best. So that is something that we're talking about from a facility standpoint. And that's where, if you have questions about things, there's a lot of things that people have asked about. The stadium is an example. Things that aren't currently a part of the bond project that we have as part of a 10-year capital outlay plan. So there's elements that the main gym isn't really touched by the bond project. We don't have any aspects of the main gym unless it's an entryway or something like that from the new structure that would go in the old pool area. But those are things, improvements that we can make out of our capital outlay budget that would be separate. We can't do every single thing that we want to do. This is a substantial project. It's a large, high-end project, and we have a lot of elements that we're addressing. We feel like we're addressing the things that our community told us needed to be addressed as we went through last spring, as we worked through the needs assessment, as we worked with our steering committee, and these were the things we felt like were a priority. But there's other areas that we want to continue to improve as well. So as part of this process, we've designed a 10-year capital outlay plan. So things that we can do out of existing funds and funds that we'll acquire over time that would be separate from the bond project, but allow us to continue to improve facilities at the elementary school, for example. We want to create, if you have elementary children, you know that we are now having the 1-2 drop-off is on the east side of the 1-2 commons. You know, we want to create a vestibule there, an entryway, a covered area. So we're going to do that out of capital outlay money. If you go into the main entrance of the elementary school, there's very limited visibility from the office area to the front doors. And we feel like that's a concern. We want to create more visibility, so we're going to remodel that space out of capital outlay money. We want to do some flooring replacement. There's a lot of different things that we have as a long-term facilities plan that would be separate from the bond and would operate just out of the capital outlay funds that we have available to us. Our board has done a great job over the last 7 or 8 years of building that fund up so that we can take care of the needs that we have. So main gym, that was a long answer to the main gym. It's not a part of the bond, but there are improvements we want to make that would be separate from that. Other thoughts or questions? One thing I didn't mention, and I didn't mention it last time very well until somebody asked, but with the additional students that would be in the building, we would want to expand the commons area. So if you've been in our high school, when you walk in, you'll notice that you'll be greeted by our well-stocked trophy case that has a lot of history there. We'll probably want to alter the location of that because we'd like to create a little bit different opening and open up the commons area more. And actually a portion of this auditorium would allow us to do that. So not only would the remodel of our fine arts pod allow us to create a new weight room that would be inside the building, but we would also be able to expand the commons area where we would have separate eating areas for middle school and high school and just have a much larger common space for different types of events as well. So as part of that remodel of fine arts, we would expand the commons area too. Anything else? Other thoughts? Okay, well, really appreciate your comment. If you do have questions, or you know people that have questions, or you hear people who just maybe don't have all the information, please have them reach out to me. Again, my number's available on our website and email. Stop by. Love to sit down with anybody to talk about what we're proposing. So we'll keep working through the month of February to provide information. 17th and 24th will be 2 opportunities to engage in really 2 specific topics that we want to talk about. You'll see new people up sharing on those things, and we'll just kind of keep working through that process. So really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.